Welcome once again to this full moon of July 2023, potent supermoon upon us tonight here in northern New Mexico, where I am. I feel like it's been several lifetimes since we've been together. My name is Cynthia Jewers, for those of you who don't know me. And we have been to Delphi in Greece with an Earth Treasure Vase this last month on the last full moon, actually, over the last full moon. And that trip, that pilgrimage was a trip of a lifetime. And so it really does feel like it's been a whole life has been lived since we were here. I was here last. I know you all met with Elizabeth Christine and focused on whales last month, which was a wonderful thing. Knowing that we have a treasure vase that's been dedicated to the whales of the planet. But tonight we're here to share stories about Greece. And once again, I can feel the emotion rising as I touch into this moment. It was so powerful, so potent, such a dream come true for me personally. After many, many years of intending to take a vase to Greece, feeling that call, but not fully knowing what that call was for a long time, and then finally beginning to put the pieces together. This practice for newcomers is a practice that originates in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. It's a practice that goes all the way back to the time of Guru Rinpoche or Padmasambhava, 8th century, and has been brought forward in these times because of what these times are calling for, the healing that the earth is in need of. And in 1990, I was blessed to go and meet a 106-year-old Lama living in a cave in Nepal named Charok Rinpoche. And I asked him, what can we do to bring healing and protection to the earth? He gave me this practice of the Earth Treasure Vases and suggested that they might do that work. So all these years later, we're still taking treasure vases around the planet. And when we do the meditation, we will invoke all of the locations where we've been and send our prayers to activate those locations under the light of the full moon, which we do every month and have done for all this time. So there's a global mandala being created. I like to think of it that way, with all of these locations where the treasure vases have been planted like acupuncture needles in the body of Mother Earth. And this particular location in Delphi in Greece has been a very important node to add to this global mandala. Many of you have probably heard me speak about the story of Delphi. I don't want to keep retelling that story over and over again, but it is the location where it is said that Gaia was accessed through the priestesses of the Oracle of Delphi. And they were able to receive guidance and prophecy through opening to the wisdom of the earth. And the guardian of that site was a serpent who was the offspring of Gaia, Gaia's child, and who protected that place. And on this pilgrimage, our intention in bringing a treasure vase there was in part to make an offering to Gaia once again, to remember, put the pieces back together and remember this connection, and to activate it in ourselves as oracles. And I've recently been doing some writing about all of this, attempting to do some writing about all of this for the book that I will be bringing out next year, because this location seems so important, and the way in which, when the patriarchal gods of Olympus came in and took over, the serpent was slayed, the voice of Gaia was silenced, the priestesses were then put in charge of, or put in service to, Apollo, whose temple was then built on that site. And so, that began a whole long unfolding that has resulted in the earth being disregarded in many ways. And so that time is over. I declare it. And this treasure vase was, sort of, and the pilgrimage itself was our attempt to bring that time to an end and initiate a new time, make an offering that would catalyze, sort of an opening in this place where Gaia needs to be honored. And we've done this in different ways all around the planet, everywhere we take treasure vases, but this felt a little different. And for me anyway, I felt as if many memories were being awakened. I didn't intend that. I didn't, think about it. But there was a moment in the pilgrimage. We had just briefly gone to the island of Naxos and done some ceremony there after visiting the temple of Demeter, where we really kind of offered up the things that were in the way for us personally to be the vessel to receive the oracle of Gaia, to meet that moment free and clear, and do a healing also, a cleansing and a healing to prepare ourselves. And we did that, and it was so beautiful. Then we went to Delphi, and we stayed up on Mount Parnassus in a beautiful place in the woods, and went down the first full day we were there to visit Delphi. And the place that we started was at the spring, where it was the place that the priestesses, the oracles, and all who would go there would take those waters to prepare themselves to enter that state. And we went there, and then we walked down the hill to a temple called Athena Pronea. It was the first temple that you arrive at when you get to this complex of temples that goes up the mountain. And I didn't know what to expect, but I received a little brush of the cheek, and again, a little energetic cue that let me know something was going to, maybe I need to be aware. And sure enough, sitting at that temple, the tears began to fall. And as I looked into those stones, I saw us there back then. I saw myself sweeping the temple floor and making the offerings, and that had been done for such a long time, to hold the energy and keep the balance and harmony in relationship to the earth. And as I continued to look, the tears were first of like, oh yes, remembering what it was like to be there. And then I had another sense, which was that already back then, the change was coming, and that I knew and we knew that the time was up, our time was up, and that it was only a matter of time until um, the ways of that we had been cultivating would be overtaken by the forces of power over, taking control of these cyclical rituals and rites and the access to the earth that we had so dutifully and devotedly carried out. And I saw, I mean, it was like time just stretched and fell away, and I could see the thread throughout time, bringing me here now, or there now, and my deep obsession really with fulfilling this task to keep alive the ceremonies and rituals that keep us in balance with the earth, that I had been part of back then. And I'm not one for past life memories. You have to know this. I don't know what to make of it, except this is what was arising. So I could see how I have been grappling and gropingly making my way somehow to do this, and that this opportunity in Greece was a fulfillment of that promise, that vow, that commitment. And so that's how things started. And then they kind of unfolded from there. And I don't think I have time to tell the whole story, but Nicole and I went up the mountain. The group was held so beautifully the whole way. We were really a coherent whole, which made me so happy because of the calling for this collective awakening. I felt as if we'd done so much work to prepare. Everyone was there. We had a beautiful team of Rick and Rasul with Nicole and myself and Therese from Australia, and then all of you, many of you who are here on this call, and I will tell it in my book, yes, as much as I can. I'm writing that chapter now. So Nicole and I went up the hill to visit the cave, and this is this cave that really predates Delphi, the temples at Delphi. And, later after visiting this place I just described, we went to visit the Temple of Apollo and all of these other sites that are where the oracle took place. And honestly, I didn't really feel that much in those places, except for what happened later. It was as if that place was a place that was held earlier in the way that I described. And then things did change, and things have unfolded over time in the ways that they have. And so we went back to this cave, which is like entering the womb of Gaia herself. It is enormous, and it goes back and back and back, and there's caverns and crevices, and it is amazing. And we made our way back there. And when we got to where we couldn't go any further, Nicole and I looked at each other, and Nicole said, we're fulfilling this vow that we made back then to bring this offering here. And we both just went, oh. and the bees were humming and the wildflowers were blooming, and it was like we were in this beautiful pure land, and Nicole can describe that even better than me. And the next day we filled the vase with the final offerings. Actually, that night we all gathered around, we made our offerings, we sewed a piece of snake fabric that I had had for many years back together with red thread. That is the thread that gets us out of the labyrinth. And we sewed, each of us sewed that snake back together. And then we draped some of the fabric from the snake over the cork of the vase and sealed it. And Kat, who's here and was there, and maybe later you can share a little bit about this, Kat, had made an omphalos, which is the navel of the earth, for us, with the serpent coiled around it. It's the most beautiful offering. And we prepared in such a way. And the next day we walked back up together. And we buried that omphalos with the serpent at the base of the mountain as the guardian and as the opener of the way. And we went into the cave and circled up one by one, making this beautiful spiral, which felt like, as we sang the Gaia mantra, the opening of the time in the place. And humbly, like we just put one foot in front of the other, but there we were. And then a little group of us went off onto the mountain to bury the vase. And the rest of the group held the space in the cave for us. And we did it. And that vase is tucked into that land in the most perfectly beautiful way. And when we returned to the sound of this beautiful chanting. Each of you in the group were singing us back like expectant mothers and hugged us. So precious. And then Nicole broke out her drum and we danced ecstatically for a few moments, a few precious moments. So I'll pass it to you, Nicole. I spoke way more than I anticipated, but it feels so good to share all of this with you. And of course, there's way more, but we have a few other people on the call to also share both before and hopefully after the meditation, each of whom has a facet of the whole. So, Nicole, how about you?
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for sharing such a sacred piece of your experience with us.
Yeah.
So I'll do a little bit of sharing, and then I'm going to invite 3 more pilgrims to share before the meditation. And then we'll enter into the meditation, and Julian will play as part of that. And then after that, we'll invite more of the folks who are on the pilgrimage to do some sharing with the Mother Vase open, and then we'll open it up to the wider community for offerings as well. So couple pieces that I would like to share is, as many of you know, because I wrote in the newsletter, that I'm here because of a bee. That's how I arrived in this community, is because of a connection to the bees. And that connection has been a really important piece also of this journey to Delphi for me, because part of this tradition is rooted in that land and the tradition of the Melissa, the Melissae, the priestesses of Demeter and Persephone there, and the Delphic bee, which moves with the Delphic. Sometimes she's called the Pythia, and sometimes she was called the Delphic bee. So there's a bee serpent motif, and there's a site of the bee nymphs, which was on Mount Parnassus, that we connected to. That was very important. So when we began the container of preparation with the community, we built a hive. We built the Delphi Dreaming Hive, because part of the tradition of the oracular tradition with the bees is the dreaming. And so beginning in February, some of you who are here now in the community, we built this hive together, dreaming together, weaving the mythic threads together. And that ally of the bee was with us there throughout all the preparations, the symbolisms, the metaphors. And I just wanted to name that when we were on the full moon day and we were walking in our procession, which took an hour to walk all the way up where the site was, that just a few days before it had rained. And so the wildflowers were freshly opened in all their reds and yellows and purples, just lining the sides of the path. And many of the trees and shrubs were also flowering. So we were walking inside of this incredible hum all the way up, and visually just in splendor. And I think it was Kat who said it first, that was like, Gaia is wearing her gown. She is in her gown, just beautiful. And we just were surrounded in the hum of all the bees, just delighting in the fresh nectar all around us. And when we got to the place up above, there was even more of a hum, that it was just stunningly beautiful up there. And we went, as Cynthia mentioned, a small group of us went to do the burial. And when we were singing and drumming, someone had taken a video of us doing that. And in the video, what you can see and what we realized later is that the bees had swarmed just outside of the burial site and had created the chaos field, which is one of the phases of a swarm. So while we were singing and drumming, they were out there in their chaos field, this new swarm, because a new queen was born, and the hive, the colony had separated, and a portion of them were getting ready to fly to a new site. So they were in their chaos field, we're drumming and dancing, they're right outside there. And then when we completed and we walked to sit and picnic together and kind of restore with some nourishment, then the bees got very loud. And I looked up and I saw that, so the phases are chaos field, and then cluster, which many of you have seen, where they surround and protect their queen on a cluster on a branch somewhere. And then after the cluster, when the scouts have found a new home, they lift up and they fly in a certain direction. And traditionally, in ancient times, they would watch the behavior of a swarm as a form of divination. So where the swarm would fly was a really important thing to track. So when they were in the chaos field. So when we came out, they had already clustered. So we didn't know they were there. But then when we were nourishing, then they got very loud, and it was the liftoff moment where they lifted off. They were maybe, I don't know, 10 feet from us, just right there. Like, they did not want us to miss that they were completely synced up, and in it just felt like communion, like call and response, like we are right with you, we see you, we know what you're doing, and we're in celebration. It felt like a celebration. So they lifted off, they were right near us, and then they flew east. And that was significant to note that for me. And many of us have different interpretations of east. And a couple of them for me, one of them was first the gate of the new dawn, the new time, the new birth, the rebirth, the new queen, the queen being crowned, the queen's rebirth. And secondly, we had, and I'm sure this will be mentioned more, but we had a very synchronistic connection with, first of all, which I'm sure Rick will name, we were carrying the Delphi vase, and we were carrying the vase for the Himalayas, which Rick received. And while we were there, there was another pilgrimage of close friends, Dr. Ian Baker, who's a friend of Cynthia's, on pilgrimage with Dr. Nida, who's a Tibetan doctor. And they were on pilgrimage talking about ancient Tibetan medicine and ancient Greek medicine and the connection between the two. Their last day of their pilgrimage ended in Delphi, and we landed there on their last day. So our group, the leaders of that group and our group had an overlap. So it was a beautiful opportunity to connect. And so I also felt a very strong awareness that them flying east was very connected to the Himalayas, and that song line between Delphi and the Himalayas, which continued to be a theme. So I just want to name that in terms of the wider mandala, the connection between this node and the Himalayan node was very apparent, very strong on this pilgrimage. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just finish with, also for me, the strong connection from Greece to Italy was also a node connection that felt very activated. And there's more to say about that, but very literally from Eleusis to Florence, there's a strong connection. And the fact that we're going to Italy and to Florence in October was just kind of mind-blowing because of the connections that were being illuminated to us about that. So I will leave it there. And
very tantalizing, Nicole. And there's, as I said earlier too, there's just so much to share. Maybe we can touch on Italy at the end after the meditation, because I'd love to do that myself. And also to say, in reference to the Himalayan vase and being at Delphi in this experience, that it felt to me as if a new dharma door was opening. And I'm not really sure how to talk about that yet, but it feels like there is a pathway here that is going to be very wonderful to explore together. So yeah, thank you so much, Nicole. You brought so much to this pilgrimage, and I'm just deeply in awe and grateful for what we were able to do together. Yeah.
Marita, I'd love to invite you in if you're ready.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nicole and Cynthia. I'm in awe, such awe of you. And I wrote a reflection today to read. So I hope you don't mind my reading, but I'll start with a poem by Rumi. I subscribe to receiving a poem by Rumi daily. And this happened to be the one that came this morning in my mailbox. And it's called Honeycomb. It says, "My best days are when I melt. Love streams from me. Warm, timeless honey from your invisible comb." And I was so moved that that would come today. And so I wrote this in response to this poem. I melted during this sacred pilgrimage. I melted in the heat, walking on such a beautiful ancient land. I melted as we trusted and followed the process of preparing ourselves to accompany the designated pilgrims for the burial of this earth treasure vase. I melted in the temples, walking on the cobblestones, gravel, sands, ferrying on the seas, meditating, sitting under olive trees, dancing with Pollyanna in the Hill of Muses, following Professor Maria and her scholars, being reborn on a private beach in Naxos, and waiting in a cave that echoed unearthly music. I melted from the fire in the hearts of pilgrims called from 6 countries who surely have held each other up over millennia, when matriarchies were honored and when they were repressed, as we work to heal the wounds we witnessed and we personally experienced. Our pilgrim group consisted of maidens, mothers, crones, and 1 green man. We all answered a call to physically attend this celebration. We were surrounded and supported by others in the dreaming hive who had heard that call, and they were equally felt by us whenever we gathered together. While we were being prepared, so was our earth treasure vase. She started out as a maiden, adorned with beautiful jewelry and embroidered clothing. We passed her warm hand to warm hand around our circle, offering to her our finest prayers, dreams, and gifts of the earth and the arts and our hearts. We filled her womb with love. In some ways, she seemed like a princess. And then her material fineries were removed with care, and she became naked again so that she could fit into her special node in the mandala. Since her burial at the last full moon, she has been giving birth to the new era we are seeking, with a new harmony between male and female. Someday she will be a crone, and the truth of this beautiful centuries-old Buddhist tradition will be as visible as she is invisible deep in Mount Parnassus. A college friend thanked me for taking this pilgrimage, and she was thanking all of us for what we were doing for all women. So I bow to Cynthia, Nicole, Rasul, Rick, Therese, and everyone who made it possible for me to melt and feel such warm, sweet grace at my core. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much, Marita. This was really wonderful to hear all of that. I would love to hear from you, Rick. Nicole, did you have anything to say at this moment? No. Please. Dear Rick, thank you for being with us on this pilgrimage, and please share whatever you would like for the benefit of all.
Yeah. Well, such a joy to be here with you tonight, and such a gift to have been on the pilgrimage. So when I was reflecting today on what I wanted to share, one sentence came to mind that has been a sentence on the pilgrimage that has been very present for me. And it's from body to body, from body to body. And what I mean by that is transmission that takes place, that I felt at several of those sacred sites, the transmission that takes place when a human body meets the earth body of a sacred place, and specifically a place where meaningful rites and honoring of the earth has taken place for so many centuries. In my diary around this, I wrote, visiting the ancient sacred sites in this reverential and intentional way feels like a way of repatterning, repainting one's own understanding and being back woven into the wisdom and resonance these places hold. This journey has been for me about that way of remembering, reawakening the memory centered around our primordial connection to the earth and cosmos. It feels essential about this reawakening, that reawakening of this knowing within ourselves, that we do that through touching these places and cultures from body to body, where that knowing is, at least to a certain degree, still alive and tangible. Though I would say in Greece, we visited sites where it's electric when we come with that intention and reverence and in the spirit of offering. There's such a reciprocity there, such a sense of being received and being opened up to, because we came open and in a way empty-handed to just listen and offer. I felt that there's a sense that we can nourish and empower the original intentions of those sacred sites, and that those sites can nourish and empower our true intention and aspirations too. We are in sacred collaboration. There are two places I wish to share about today, though there are many others that I could touch. But the first one is Eleusis, which is well known for the Eleusinian mysteries, which are closely related to the myth of Demeter and Persephone. And these mysteries are considered to be the most famous of the sacred religious rites of ancient Greece and go all the way back to the 6th century BC. Shortly after our visit, I wrote in my diary, the energy at Eleusis is mythic, the ancients still communicating, readily accessible. Something happened at the rock overhang where they yearly enacted the abduction of Persephone into the underworld. Memories awakening of the healing ritual theater in its original form. Feeling the true rites of passage that happened here. The deaths and rebirths over and over again. Prayers arise from my heart for the ancient to reemerge, to reawaken. My soul has come to life today. Several days later, we visited the site of Athena Pronea in Delphi. And Pronea means the temple before Apollo, because this will be the temple that you would see first when you would approach the big temple complex of Apollo. And it was specifically the middle temple here called the Tolos. It has left a deep mark and continues to speak to me. And there's no clarity about what this temple was dedicated to, but what I've read said there are evidences that this temple was dedicated to Chthonic deity, which means a deity related to the underworld, a place in, under, or beneath the earth. Whereas the Olympic gods like Apollo were understood to reference that which exists above the earth, particularly the sky. So again, from my diary, I feel her presence, Gaia's presence. I can't even put it in words, but I feel that what we are doing is real, and that she is real, that Gaia is real, that there truly is a living spirit, a very, very alive soul of the earth. The love, the presence, the reality of it was very palpable. I stood there taking it in for a while, and then I walked to the other side and sat down. The presence remained strong, and for the duration of an hour that we were there, I was in a different world, and I believe that most of us, if not all of us, were in their own version of this different world, the mythic world, the underworld. And in that communication, a lot of healing happened. I understood that all that I've been praying for in preparation for this pilgrimage somehow became visible there. I won't say that everything happened there, but it became visible. And I really got a sense, and I heard that all you had and all we had to do in that moment was just to come there, to actually show up from body, to be physically present on that place so that our prayers could be catalyzed, could be fulfilled. And it was truly as if she said, I am here for you. I am here with you. And the next day in the Christian cave, which is a whole another story, but just to briefly touch there, was that notion, I am here for you, I am with you. In the Christian cave, I really, in the womb of the earth, I really felt that I want to be here for her too. And I've listened deeply there, what that relationship could be. And that's the fire that I carry since Greece. I want to learn more. I want to embody this more. I want to tell those stories. And it's truly like we've lived a modern day myth, truly. And I hope and I trust that you're getting a sense of that myth today here. And it feels so, so, so important that the stories of these places are being shared. The historical stories, but as well the stories of the present day, of the here and now, what still happens on those places if we come in the ways that we've come. And that I trust many other people and groups visit the places in this way. So the ancient memories need to be preserved, kept, and spread in order to be re-enlivened, reawakened, remembered. And that is the thread that I am committed to follow. Thank you for this opportunity to share, to be on a pilgrimage, to make this journey of a lifetime. May the way continue to be open. May you be surprised, guided in deep service to this very, very alive spirit of the earth.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick. And Pamela, welcome.
As you can tell, it really was like a dream and continues to be what I think for all of us. Just an amazing, amazing, sacred experience that we all are feeling so much gratitude for. And I live in Crescent Hill, Kentucky, and knew nothing of this whole pilgrimage until February 7th on the full moon this year. I had just given my mother's eulogy in Ohio, and I was traveling back to Kentucky on I-71, and I got a ping on my phone saying, there's this pilgrimage. I think it has your name written all over it, must apply. And I did, and it was already filled. But I heard back a couple days later from lovely Nicole that someone couldn't go. And would I like to go? She said they'd reviewed my application and loved the story I wrote about being a small child and planting my nature treasures in a box deep in the ground underneath my snowball bush. I would sing to them. I said, I don't know what you're doing, but I surely must know it. And I would love to come. And by the way, Nicole, where do you live? And she said, well, I'm a steward of this serpent mound vase, and I live in Yellow Springs, Ohio. And when I got home from my trip, I had looked, and she lived, I was sitting at a rest stop when I got that message, halfway between her farm and the serpent mound. I surely heard the song lines. It called me in at such a beautiful time in my life. My mother and father have both recently passed, and I have been in this beautiful portal of what is next and reflecting on and remembering my deep connection to Gaia. At 16 years old, it was the first Earth Day, and I was a sophomore in high school. And I vowed that day that I would carry on and help people remember to stay in touch with the beauty of Gaia, of nature. And I have done that for well over 53 years, as I have brought many people to my farm in Indiana and taught thousands and thousands of children to keep alive their inborn sense of wonder and awe. And my own wonder and awe came alive again in this joyful, sacred opportunity, this portal. And as I'm letting go of my biological family who's passing, I'm opening to this collective family and finding all these beautiful souls like each of you who feel this deep awe and reverence for Gaia and a role that we're called to play, even though we may not understand it. And we're doing that, and this pilgrimage was certainly that. And oh, the laughter, the joy, the awe, the wonder, the sacredness, every emotion was felt. I must say that for me, one moment stood out above all the others, and I had the honor of carrying the sacred vase with the help of others up Mount Parnassus on the hour-long hike Nicole was so beautifully describing earlier. Our senses were alive. We had been in the scrubbier lands of Greece with the hot sun and the short vegetation and the rocks. And we'd also been to the beach. But when we got to those mountains and that tree canopy, and everything was singing, and all the way up that mountain, humming, singing. And Julian, I could hear your didgeridoo. And I could feel the love of all of the people that have been involved in this project, all these many full moons, and the commitment and the devotion. And I was humbled to my knees to play a role as a midwife at this time. it felt so full circle for me. And my commitment and devotion to carrying that out the rest of my days is very alive within me. And the connections I've made with dear people who I didn't know before I went, who I know now, and we've known one another before, it seems. Thank you to all of you who have said a prayer or shown up for these calls or stitched a beautiful quilt or made something beautiful for us to take. We felt so, so, so supported by the entire mandala and each of you. It was magnificent, and it will take me the rest of my years to unpack it all. And I love doing that day by day, joy by joy, moment by moment. Thank you all.
So, so I just feel like I'm going to be continuing to receive everything that you all shared. I'm glad it's recorded so I can sit with it again and again. This is a lot, so much to take in. And so we're going to head into the meditation now. So I just encourage you to stay with these threads, and while we drop in and feeling what you receive from these sharings and letting them enter into your vessel as we feel ourselves deeply rooted in Delphi, and now bring our attention and our awareness to the whole mandala, this opportunity to integrate not only into ourselves, but feeling it as a part of the wider mandala together. So this is that kind of transition moment while we're receiving this and then gently allowing this to expand and connect out. So I welcome you to turn off your videos and stay muted, and Cynthia and I will guide you through this next piece.
Mhm. So as usual, we'll start with a bell. And here it is. So letting all of that which has been shared sink in. Let's take a few breaths in and out, deep and slow, feeling our bodies relax and align with our breath as we make room for all that has been shared and experienced on this pilgrimage to Delphi, to enter us as holy vessels and inform us in ways that we don't even yet know. Let's sense the ground beneath us, holding us, offering stability and calm. Our roots reaching deep down into the earth that Rick described, the underworld. Breathing in and breathing out, drawing that earth energy up those nourishing energies, the life force of Mother Earth that she shares so generously with us, Gaia. Letting all thoughts of the past and concerns about the future just melt away like Marita described. And in this precious moment of communion with each other and with the stabilizing and nourishing energies of Mother Earth that we welcome once again into our consciousness, let's open also to the light from above, the feeling of warmth from the sun and the moon and the stars. And as we connect with the vast energies of the entire cosmos, which the earth is held within, rooted below, connected above, this wide open view, all that is in this present moment. Let's breathe.
Staying with your breath, shifting our awareness to feel your connectedness to this place that you sit on the planet right now. Feeling your relationship to the soils and the stones, the waterways, the green, the flowering ones, the communities of life who also call your place home, just like you, who also receive stability and nourishment from Mother Earth and the warmth of the sun and the moon in that place alongside you. In this present moment, in this special place, we acknowledge those who have come before. We acknowledge the ancestors of the original indigenous peoples of the lands that we inhabit, who have been in sacred relationship with these lands for countless generations. We acknowledge the future ancestors of this land, who will continue to hold this land as sacred for countless generations to come. We humbly invite all of them to bless us and bless our practice in this moment, here, now.
And as we receive this blessing, let's also invite the blessing of all of our extensive sources of inspiration, our own ancestors, elders, teachers and guides, lineage masters, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and all of the wisdom beings that we feel connected to, and invite them to be present with us now. Feel their presence when we invite them. And invite their blessings to enter us. And all who may listen to this meditation later and receive this blessing of love, support, guidance, healing, and clarity. And as this blessing enters you, feel this love and caring coming all the way into your own deepest heart. And breathe it in, receive it. And breathing it out, send this love to everyone who is present in this circle. And breathing in, receive the love that is being sent to you. Breathing in and breathing out, receiving and sending this love like the ebb and flow of tides washing blessings amongst us in this circle. Gradually then opening to expand your focus to include all of your friends and family and the wider community that you live within, and all of those who this practice might serve. And imagine our circle growing from our home, our neighborhood, our bioregion, our country and continent to include all beings in all places, everywhere, embracing the whole planet with our love. Breathing in and breathing out with Gaia.
With this feeling of rootedness below and this expansiveness above, and these gentle waves of blessing flowing between our hearts and expanding out, let's turn our awareness to those who are suffering, the places where there is war, violence, poverty, disease, pollution, droughts or floods or fires, wherever the need for healing is very great. Breathing in and breathing out, sending your love and caring to relieve the suffering of the earth, her people, and of all life. Imagine that where there is hunger, great nourishing gardens begin to grow. Where there is thirst, fresh clean waterways spring forth. Where there are unhoused, safe shelters are built. Where there is war and conflict, choirs of peace begin to echo in the hills. Where there is sickness, vital health is celebrated. And aware of the places on earth that are unstable, in danger, or out of balance in any way, imagine a restoration of balanced power and vitality, bringing protection and regeneration, reweaving relationship. Imagine the song lines connecting these places, the song lines singing in great harmonies. See generosity and reciprocity in communities of life flowing freely, easefully. Seeing the beauty and richness of nature just flowering into abundance for the sustenance of life, revitalizing this radiant blue-green planet we call home.
And as we hold this glowing vision of Mother Earth, let's call into our awareness the presence of the Earth Treasure Vases, those that have been planted or those that are in the process of being planted all around the world. Let's imagine that together we're pouring our love and caring in the form of light into each and every little clay pot buried in the body of Mother Earth, filling each vase with our deepest prayers and blessings for healing and regeneration, restoration. Imagine each earth treasure vase radiating light in every direction, sending healing and protective energies wherever it is needed, in whatever form it is needed. See the light like a rainbow streaming forth from each of the vases, white, yellow, red, blue, green, and all the colors in between, and breathing in and breathing out. Allow the feeling of caring and compassion in your heart of hearts to grow. And send that love out in the form of light to all of the people, animals, plants, and places that are connected to the earth treasure vases that need healing and protection in the past, in the present, and in the future. Beginning at the center of the earth treasure vase, global healing mandala in a cave above Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, the birthplace of the atomic bomb. And to the north, at the source of the Rio Grande River in Creede, Colorado. To the south, at the mouth of the Rio Grande at the Gulf of Mexico. To the east, on top of Mount Baldy above Santa Fe. And to the west, on top of Mount Chacoma, known as Tsicamu, to the Tewa people of New Mexico, who are the custodians of these sacred lands where this mandala began.
And now, having established the center in the four directions, see the mandala growing in every direction to the Indian Point Nuclear Reservation on the Hudson River in New York, to the headwaters Old Growth Redwood Forest in Northern California, the Punta Cometa on the coast of Oaxaca, Mexico, Vilcabamba, Ecuador, Jakova, Kosovo, the Lawrence Laboratory at the University California, Berkeley, the Daldum Forest on the border of Thailand and Burma, the village of Ein Karem in Israel, Palestine, Hiroshima, Japan, the cloisters in New York City after 9/11, the Biosphere 2 in Oracle, Arizona, the Martin Luther King Freedom Center in Oakland, California, the source of the Ganges in India, the source of the Amazon in Peru, the Southern Pacific Ocean, 93 feet down in Egum Atoll, the Trobriand Islands, Papua New Guinea, the Arctic Circle, Alaska, the Kogi lands of the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, Colombia, Telawayan Village, Lofa County, Voinjama District, Liberia, West Africa, the Blyde River Canyon, Limpopo Province, South Africa, the Giza Plateau, Egypt, Haleakala, Maui, Hawaii, the Itombwe Forest, South Kivu Province, Democratic Republic of Congo, Avebury, England, Bindaluk, Jawoin Country, Catherine, Northern Territory, Australia.
And the second generation of earth treasure vases in Gobernmong, Arnhem Land, Australia. The Mackenzie King Park, the Ottawa River Valley in Ottawa, Gatineau, Canada. The original garden in Findhorn, Scotland. The Great Stupa of Bodhanath in Kathmandu, Nepal, the Flint Hills of Kansas in the heartland of America, the Santa Cruz Mountains near Silicon Valley, California, the Valles Caldera of northern New Mexico, Purnalulu, Bungabungals, the Kimberleys, Australia, the village of Utqiagvik at the edge of the sea in northernmost Arctic Alaska, the Hanford Nuclear Reservation on the shores of the Columbia River in the state of Washington, Mount Ryozen above Fukushima, Japan, back to where it all began at the cave hermitage of Charok in Nepal, to Margaby County, Liberia, in the base of an old ironbark tree on Ditiel Mountain in the Budawang wilderness of Walbunja country, Yuin Nation, southeastern Australia, and to our root temple, Tolu Tarling Monastery in Nepal, the Munzer Valley in Turkey, Serpent Mound in Ohio, the Ashaninka Spiritual Portal, Campo de Rio, Amonea, Indigenous Land, Acre, Brazilian Amazon bordering Peru, the Border Peace School in Cherwan, the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, our Waco territory in Colombia, the Te Waiponamu, South Island, Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the vase recently planted on Mount Parnassus above Delphi in Greece.
And the third generation of Earth Treasure Vases in Antarctica, the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides, Scotland, the Saugatuck Dunes on Lake Michigan in the USA, and to the Highwood Valley in the Rocky Mountains in Alberta, Canada, southeastern US Turtle Island, Shakanagi, Tennessee, on the shores of Lake Washington in Kirkland, Washington, near the Life Care Center where COVID began in the USA. Will also include the Earth Treasure Vases being stewarded now to southwestern Australia, the Bering Strait in Russia, a vase dedicated to healing racism in the USA, to Washington, D.C., to Italy, to British Columbia, to the Altai Mountains in Russia, to the Himalayas, and to Chile. And we also include the third generation of Earth Treasure Vases being stewarded by those who crafted them. And finally, the 9 vases still awaiting their destination who rest on the altar along with the mother vase in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, with all of that, let's take a deep, slow in-breath once again. And a deep, slow out-breath. And imagine that all that is needed to relieve the suffering of the earth can be seen as light radiating out from each of the Earth Treasure Vases all around the whole planet in every direction. Imagine this healing light flowing out from the vases, filling the whole global mandala with the powerful energies of our love and our caring. See this powerful healing force traveling through the songlines and meridians of the earth, flowing into each location on this global mandala. See the mandala like a web of light, embracing the whole planet. And feel the light flowing back and forth like waves from your heart to the treasure vases, energizing them and adding vitality and brilliance to the light that is then flowing out to the whole area in the sphere of influence of each of the earth treasure vases.
Also feel this light, its warmth flowing into your own location, your special spot in nature. Feel the collective spiritual intelligence of the entire global mandala activating and infusing your node on the healing mandala and entering you as a holy vessel. And finally, please focus your concentration one pointedly on bringing healing and protection to the whole earth for all time. See the healing and protection radiating out from all the vases, vibrating, humming around the earth in waves of light flowing back and forth endlessly.
And imagine that the healing is accomplished and the vitality of the earth is completely restored. Recognizing the great interconnected web that is life on Earth, and of which we are each a part. May we give thanks for this precious and sacred time, and pray that the compassion and peace that is our true condition may bring supreme happiness and benefit to the earth and to all beings. And with another slow in-breath and slow out-breath, let's bring our awareness back into our bodies, feeling our feet on the floor, grounded on the earth in our own location, and wiggling our toes, opening our eyes, and returning to the circle for sharing. Thank you all for your presence and your prayers and your practice. As a way to begin, I wanted to bring forward the Mama Vessel here, holding space for all these little treasure vases all over the world, and to make a couple of offerings from Delphi into this holy vessel, starting with some earth from the burial location, wrapped in a little bit of snake skin and tied with a red thread. A laurel leaf, which is the plant that was burned for the oracle to activate her capacity to see and receive the guidance from Mother Earth. Also chewed a little bit of water from a very clear, small, little pond way deep in the cave. A crystal cave, a chamber with crystals. And lastly, a little bit of the sweetness of the bees, a little bit of Greek honey to activate all of our prayers. And bring the sweetness and joy all around the world. Mm-mm. And so now the vase is ready to receive whatever else would like to be offered. And Nicole, maybe you'd like to open the circle.
Sure. First, I would like to invite forward those who are on the pilgrimage that would like to offer anything, even a little bit of a reflection if you want to offer a thread that's alive for you.
Cat.
Hi, Kat.
I would just like to share a little bit about the Amphalos, because it was such an honor to be able to be part of the pilgrimage in that way, to offer that through my art making. And the Amphalos is a stone that's carved, and it's in a museum now. There is a second one that's still at the site, but this is the most ancient one, and it was part of the oracle in that it was hollow. It's hollow in the inside, and it's bringing up the voice of the earth through this hollowness inside this stone. And so Cynthia had asked me to make a piece that would be as if our own Amphalos. And so I went and studied up on that Amphalos. And at first I was thinking to try to make something like that, but then it just wasn't to be, because what was to be was the serpent to be remembered, put back together, the serpent that was slain and cut into pieces. And I've lived on this land that I live on for about 5 years, and 3 snake skins have been left here for me. And so I decided then that they were offerings for the Amphalos. And so I covered, I work with paper and paper mache, so it's not something that's it's going to break down in the earth, but just like the skins. But there's also the whole shedding of the skin. So I covered the entire piece with snake skin. And then I made a snake, and I made it golden brown and blue green. And it had a copper wire that ran through the entire body. And then it came out of the body as the tongue. And so I made the tongue. And it was also it was the same basic form as the original Amphalos. And initially I thought, the idea was that it might go on top of the vase in the ground. But what ended up happening was even more amazing to me, because there were so many offerings that were given to the vase, that the physical offerings, because many people had gathered offerings from friends and so forth. So it ended up that we put all those offerings that didn't fit into the vase into the omphalos. So to me, it felt like such a very integral part of it. It just really came together. It was so amazing. And the beautiful dakini claws that covered the vase the whole time that Cynthia so lovingly held that vase went on the bottom of the omphalos, and they held all these gifts and prayers from spilling out the bottom. And it completely filled the whole omphalos. And I think, as Cynthia mentioned, then it was then put at more at the base of the, well, at the base of the trail, you know, more toward the beginning of the trail, because it had to be buried more in soft soil, and it was quite rocky above. And also it was the serpent at the gateway, you know, the protector, and we found this beautiful field, and I actually found this spot where an animal had started to dig and then left, and just, so there was like this little area of bare ground, and I was just like, yeah, this animal started it for us. And there were a couple people that were thinking, oh, it's too rocky or whatever, but there was just a whole group of us, and we were like animals. Everyone just was digging and digging. Everyone was very like going for it, you know, and it's like, there's nothing that's gonna stop us. And we put that beautiful quilt. I'm sorry, I don't recall who made that. Maybe Cynthia, who is that?
That is Susan. And yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for mentioning that, because it was a big part of the burial there.
Yes, so we lined the hole with this beautiful quilt made by Susan, little small quilt, and then we put the omphalos in there, and we buried it, but we left the tongue sticking out of the ground and conducting, you know. So anyway, I just wanted to share that piece because, well, wow. You know, I mean, I feel so blessed and honored that I could serve in that way, in the way that it all unfolded to be such a powerful part of this this journey. And I just want to say it was also doubly powerful for me because my grandparents were born in Greece on my mother's side, and there was a whole, you know, the personal is the universal. You know, there was a whole line of healing that I was also working on my matriarchal line at the same time as working this universal, you know, line. And I also turned 65 in Greece on the first day at being a Delphi. So it was quite a profound, amazing coming together. And I just want to weave this quickly, just want to weave this thread in too, because last night I was in the prayer lodge of the Anishinaabe people that I do prayer sweat lodges with last night, and they had put prayers in a little bear, and that went in the vase. But when I came away from that, what I really realized was I'm really mostly almost always the only non-native person there, and I'm just witnessing the remembering of the people, the reclaiming of their culture and their language and their rituals. And I feel like it's, you know, this theme of remembering, it just, the threads are all woven together. And I came home and I just wanted to share that because it felt so aligned with all of this, that that also, that honor of just witnessing this reclaiming and remembering. And being a part of that. So anyway, thank you everyone so much for everything. And we all felt this circle, and everyone in the circle and the mandala so profoundly. So thank you so much.
And to all of you, many of whom are on the call, who sent offerings to the vase, most of those made it into the vase, and I'll post something about that soon. It was so incredible to be able to bring all of you with us in that way, and including that beautiful quilt, Susan, which was too large for the burial of the vase, but served perfectly with this omphalos and serpent that Kat just described. So thank you all so, so much. Before we call on you, Julian, I just want to see if there's anyone else from the pilgrimage group on the call. We have Laura Lynn, okay, and Liza Jane. And I'm not sure whether Julie or Rasul would like to speak, but I want to give space for you if you would like to. So go ahead, Laura Lynn. Therese also, yes. Oh, maybe it was you, Therese. Would you like to speak? Yes. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, sorry about that. All right, Laura Lynn, let's go to Therese. She's got her hands up, and then we'll come to you.
Thank you. It's such a joy. Yeah, I was there with you on the Delphi journey, and now I'm here in the land of Julian, and Julian's stewarding this beautiful little earth treasure vase to this land here, to Noongar Budja, to Wajak Budja, and to the land south of here, Yanang Budja. So here we sit with our friends as well, my partner Itai and Julian's partner Sophie. So I would like to weave some of the blessings from the Delphi trip from Greece into this vase as it continues its journey. So I have a couple of offerings from, first of all, from Aotearoa. So I live in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and have placed the vase there in December. So, and these offerings also went into the Delphi vase, and so now coming into the Southwest Australia Earth Treasure Vase, the sand from Akaroa in Te Waiponamu, the South Island of New Zealand, where we placed that vase under the mighty totara tree in the presence of the tui and the kereru birds. A piece of Pounamu, the sacred green stone, the heart stone and the water stone of Aotearoa. A gift from Stephen Kumi, a Vajra crystal that he joined us on the trip to Aotearoa and gifted this for Julian's vase at that time. A gift of some oil, which is a heart balm, a heart oil for easing the pain of grief that we're feeling around the world with all of the shifts and the changes of the time of the dropping away of the old, and all the grief that's arising for us all with that. So an offering to this land as well, for the people of this land, for the easing of the grief, of all the healing that needs to happen in this land as well. And that's of olive oil, kawa kawa, which is a heart plant medicine, and rose quartz, the heart stone. And then from Delphi, the laurel leaf, a piece of that. The vase is quite full already. And the earth from the place where the Earth Treasure Vase is buried in Delphi. Yes. And the image that I would like to share into the vase as I offer the sand is one of the images that arose on the journey. So to share this experience and this feeling with the vase, there was a moment that I shared with a few other sisters deep in the cave. A moment when we turned off the lights and sat in the dark, complete darkness, complete silence. We could only hear the sound of each other's breath. And I became aware of our womb space, that deep space within us, and that I was inside the womb space of Gaia, inside the cave, and at the same time connected with the whole universe, with the stars and all the dark spaces in between. And I feel that connection inside each vase, inside each vessel, that beautiful womb space that each Earth Treasure Vase is, and also the deep, silent, still space that each Earth Treasure Vase rests within in this moment inside Gaia, wherever they are, all around the Earth, in this beautiful mandala. So I offer that to this vase and to you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Therese. Laura Lynn?
Well, I'm still in Greece. I can't go without honey and olives and feta every day. I had mountain tea this morning, and it was just such a natural progression. Like I felt like I have known everybody that was there. And it was just a reunion and a fulfillment of a promise made long ago. Like we all were feeling that. And just the way that things are still woven, the way Trey's just talked about the linking the idea of the Delphi vase to the one that Jillian is stewarding now. And to Kat talking about how she felt the connection when she was in the lodge yesterday. My connections here are very profound as well. Yesterday, there happened to be a bear who just walked through my yard when I was gardening and admiring the bees and the flowers and hanging a new little bee house that my daughter's friend made for me. And thinking also before Kat even spoke about when I was listening to Rick, it reminded me of what's happening with the natives. You know, when you grow up in the 60s and 70s, the school was like, well, all this happened in history. Like everything that happened to the natives was history, and now they're sort of not really around. And it's not like that anymore. It's just disappeared. And ancient Greek things. Oh yeah, they used to do these rituals, and but we're living it, and it's so amazing and delicious and real. And to be even more conscious since that trip of how connected everything is just incredible. One of the first things that I did when I went out into the world after coming back was to do a pipe ceremony for the solstice. And I described what we had been doing and about our dedication to, you know, healing the original or you know, a big split that happened in Western society with the falling away of what Earth people had been in service to, and it being hijacked for the extraction world that we're finding ourselves in now. And there were two men in that circle who were just sobbing. Like I have gone to a lot of ceremonies like that, and they were just very, very moved, and they were talking about healing that masculine side that needs honoring. And so I'm and accepting their feminine side, and it's really tangible, the prayers there. And tonight when we were doing the meditation during the didgeridoo, I always see those lines that we speak of. But this first full moon of meditating since the Delphi vase has been installed, literally those lines, usually it's like liquids looking at the song lines in a visual way, or it's like light going through, or like a gossamer glistening web, or different things. That tonight it was very thick, very strong blood veins. And I saw the mandala tonight as like the beginning of an embryo, like the heart starting to beat. It literally felt like that. It looked like that. It was like, I'm a little bit squeamish, like I can't watch operation shows, movies that show parts. So I was like, it was so real that I was like, whoa, oh my God, I'm looking at an actual heart forming the way it does in an embryo. And it was very palpable. And we are heralding in. We have all been here through millions of years of our genetic existence, and we have been waiting for these times, and they're coming. And I'm thrilled to have been part of that delight in the pilgrimage. And real quick, I just wanted, one of my personal favorites was a couple, after we'd been dancing in a meadow in Delphi the day before we went to do the planting of the vase. At the end of our drumming and dancing in a wildflower meadow, there were two bees mating on my waist, like on my rib cage area. And we just all laughed and stood there at the end of our dance watching them and waiting for them to be done before we all moved. And so that's just one more little piece of the actual living and interacting with all of the myth, the story, the life, the history, the now. Thank you so much for the beautiful orchestration of the ability for all of us to experience this, and for letting us come together and share parts of this with other people, because the group that held us, kept me going in an amazing way like I've never felt. So thank you to everyone supporting. Thank you, Chimakwich.
Oh, thanks, Laura Lynn. How about Rasul, Liza Jane, or Julie? Do any of you wish to speak? Go ahead, Julie. Then we'll take Liza.
I just wanted to say, I want to, dedicate this to the Mother Vase as well. There were some very, very unexpected and very strange experiences that I had on the pilgrimage. I wanted to share one of them with you, which was, I believe it was when we were heading to the cave. The bees were actually singing the mantra, and clear as can be. And so I guess what I want to assure everyone from my experience, that the invisible world, the ancient ones, and the more than humans are so completely with us in this effort. Please know that we are not alone in what we're manifesting.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah. Liza Jane, and then Rasul.
Thank you. Thank you to Cynthia and Nicole, and to the COCO, the coordinating council, who held us so beautifully. There's so many stories, but one that I haven't shared, I don't think. As we were walking up the trail on Mount Parnassus to the cave, I kept smelling just this heavenly smell. and the trees that were near us were not familiar to me. And so I just kept going up and like rubbing on the trees and breathing in and smelling and going, oh, these trees just smell so wonderful. And I was just like really grooving on this aroma. And then I realized that it wasn't the trees, it was me. So it was this joyous realization of the interbeing. And what had happened was I had embraced Laura Lynn, and she had Amma's temple oil on, and it had gotten on my hands. And so it was just this beautiful weaving, and I swooned at just bringing in this. So I was breathing with the trees as I was walking up, and then I realized this is not the trees, it's me. So anyway, it was just a joyous mistake. And there's so many moments of joy, but that realization of interbeing that continues to happen over and over again. I just wanted to share that moment with you this evening.
Oh, wow. That's so funny. Thank you.
And I'm still smelling that because Laura Lynn actually gifted me with that oil to take with me. So thank you, Laura Lynn.
All right. Rasul, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everyone. I am calling in this evening from a town called Villa de Leyva in Colombia. It is a place of mountains and deserts. It's a place of the origin story of my ancestry. And I'd like to tell a story to the vase tonight. It is the story of a lagoon from which a woman carrying a small boy, a child in her arms, emerges from the water. And the story goes that she fed him and nourished him and supported him in being strong enough to one day become her partner. And from their union, from their partnership, was birthed the Muisca people. Once these beings came from them, they were taught by her. Her name was Bachue, and the son's name was Iwake. And the two of them taught the people how to grow corn, a seed that could feed the peoples generously, this bounty, this yellow kernel holding the memory of being in interdependence. They taught them how to weave, how to keep time with cotton and thread, and how to care for life from the action of harvesting and spinning the thread and sewing, and how to make offerings into lagoons in the form of gold and of quartz. And the story goes that at one point the people started arguing amongst themselves. They started competing for the goods that they were taking care of, and they started entering states of fear and of competition. And Bachue grew worried and disappointed and really distraught by what was happening, so much so that she decided that she was going to return back to the lagoon with her now partner. And she told them that it was in their power, it was their choice to grow the ability to respond to the truth of our interdependence, of the emptiness of a separate self, of a correspondence to life itself, to return to that. And that in the meantime, she and her partner, Iwake, would return to the waters. The story goes that they too became snakes and returned to those waters. Before going in, she told them that they would return, that she would return one day to see how the people had integrated the lessons that were part of their blueprint, part of their natural and inherent understanding of how to correspond to creation itself. And so with that story, I give thanks for the partnership that is arising now within ourselves and our capacity to listen and respond to these times as we relate to each other from the recognition of what we are all carrying, and both the beauty and the loss of what has been, and the creativity to weave that all up together in the most beautiful way possible. Through these offerings, through these pilgrimages, through the mundane, through the cleaning the toilets, through the difficult conversations, through all of it. And lastly, I would like to speak into the Mother Vase. One of the texts that Cynthia added into this lovingly crafted bundle that all of the pilgrims received at the beginning of our journey. It is an ode to Delphi, offered with devotion by Sarah Drew. Blessings to the ancient ones, the voice of sibyls and seers, the Pythia, priestess, and Python, oracles, omphalos, ouroboros, the muses 9, Calliope, Clio, Euterpe, Melpomene, Terpsichore, Arato, Polyhymnia, Urania, all ruled by Mnemosyne. The trichords of the lyre, Delphi's muses, Net, Mes, Hypate, struck and sung. The rhythm beat of the goatskin drum, bay laurel offered, inhaled, and imbibed. The wisdom streams of revelation and the circle dance of celebration. The divinations coursing through the ear, the chthonic rush up the spine, the flower of light in the single eye, the visions seen and compassionately given, the breath of life, the pneuma, the honey tongue of truth, which offers healing nectar, the gnosis in the unfolding of time, that we each make our offering back to our mother Gaia, within and with the holy vessel of these precious mortal bodies, as our bones return to fertile soil. Knowing in the beginning and the end, in the Ouroboros kiss and the ancient spiral seed, our infinite blessings resound. Through time, the compassionate trans-temporal circle echoes from the epicenter of this holy offering. Giving thanks to Sarah Drew, to the mythology of Greece, for the receptivity with which our offerings were received, to the mythology of this time, the personification of creative principles that we are now enacting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for weaving in her words too. So we're a little bit over the hour, and we're going to go until 15 past to give some folks a little bit more time that want to make offerings. If you need to go, I know that you can do that. And also more blessings can be offered in the chat, and because that goes out with the recording and into the mandala. So just want to give those offerings opportunities as well. So we'll just stay for 10 more minutes before we close, those of you that are able to and want to give voice right now. Maggie, Ava.
I think I would like to offer thanks, and also just to give voice to what I experience from this side, sitting in this little room in Naarm in Melbourne, Victoria, in Australia, as you were in the Delphi, certainly part of that wider circle. But there were a few moments of very real experiences, as the word that's coming up. And it makes much more sense as you all have so beautifully shared your stories. Thank you. Sometimes it's hard to put it into words, so I can identify with what you've shared, some of the meaning. But I guess three things. One was I think it was the day after you would have planted the vase itself. We had the Earth Treasure Vase Monday Mindfulness Group, which includes a meditation. So in that meditation, I became very aware of my muse, that linking into the oracular stream. And as I did, I had a moment of, a level of what I would call spiritual shock, sort of some little bang that says there's something here, take note. And then I identified it also as a thread of shame that was there, as I realized there was a distance between having known the muse and received it, but a distance in my relationship to it. There was a disowning. And the shame bit came where I think that level of reversal, where there is a deep truth, it gets reversed, and then you start to believe in that reversal, and it becomes the norm. So I think shame is also a little moment that says, aha, it's time to dive back down into those depths and do the real reversal. So it was sort of an indicator, a call to start to engage in this truer relationship with this oracular stream that was there. And then that was followed that evening, sitting at the kitchen table in a very mundane space, and suddenly this most beautiful energy presence came in. So I thought, okay, I'll just sit here for a minute and close my eyes. As I did, it was much more compelling, so I knew I needed to come in and sit here in the sanctuary, which I did. And I will try and describe the beauty of the energy if I can afterwards. But first, as I sat, I became aware of this emerging form, this emergence that was there. I tried to define it. It was sort of had some level of shape and form or color or pattern, but it was indefinable. That was there. So I let go of trying to do that, and then it was the words of, this is And I don't know if it's a being, if it's a matrix, whatever the beads are leading to in the east that I don't think we have due words for yet. But there was this emergence that was there, but it said, this is being created out of humanity. It wasn't just the re-emergence of that stream of the old oracle and all of that mythos that was there. This was coming out of response to the human call, our human endeavor, all of this intensity of prayers, of vase planted, of all that's there. So it actually was this creation coming into being. And it was of us, of course. You know, it's a big spiral with all those levels of being and Gaia and stars and earth that are there as part of it. But the message was, this is of humanity. This is what we are now creating. And as you've all said, this new mythos that we're dancing our way into. So I just want to add my thanks to all of you who carried the vase, the pilgrimage, and for the gifting back to me, let alone the enormity of the gifting that we're speaking of here, of what is seeding into the world, that we're now singing into new songlines, something emergent that is this radical partnership with Gaia. And the other little element is the word real has been used in it. And sitting in this room, Ava and I created an altar in front of our usual altar, a Delphi altar that was alight throughout the time. And it's been going ever since. And as I would come in each evening, I would sit in the dark and just light the tea lights. And as I would come out of the meditation on the altar, Ava had placed this brass figurine of a goddess. She has her arms standing out like this to the side. She's actually a bell at the bottom. And each time I would open my eyes after the meditation in the rest of the darkness of the room, on the curtains behind her, which is doorways that go up to the ceiling, there was this gigantic shadow of this goddess, black goddess, standing there. And that was beautiful in itself, as I sort of would do it. Oh, there she is. But what's emerging, and that's just an example of, is this realness that's coming in. So it's like seeing her, but then there was this other, but it's actually real. And this is filtering its way into all sorts of, again, mundane moments as I'm doing exercises for my knee and looking at teapots across the room. There's another level of connectedness, another level of realness, another level of radical connectedness, something that is very present. And I do sincerely believe that it's this arising is part of, it's certainly heralded by the planting of the Delphi vase. It has a long history and history before that and after that, but absolutely this is one of the receivings as I've been able to meet it from this end. So enormously grateful personally, but enormously grateful for being in these times, being part of this mandala that can hold the world in this way, that can come into this closeness and meeting of Gaia in this absolutely timeless, future-infused sphere that we're diving into. So good swimming. Love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much all for this extraordinary sharing. And I just also am very glad that 34 years I brought the mother to this woman here.
Thank you both, Maggie and Eva. It's always great to hear from you. Thank you for being with us. Carola, briefly.
Thank you. This weekend I was on a workshop of sound and healing and voices and healing. And this Sunday morning we gathered in a circle and we sang a song about deep healing. May healing take place. And we were invited to go in the middle of the circle if we feel called to. And when I go in the middle of the circle, I felt Mother Earth below me and in my heart. And I felt me as Mother Earth. And it was so wonderful to receive the healing of the sound of the voices of the circle. And I want to put this into the Mother Vase. Thank you.
Thank you, Carola. Received. Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
Oh, thank you, everyone. This one has, again, really been very deep for myself. I was a part of the hive, even though I actually wasn't online present doing it. I listened to the recordings. And I just want to share the very first one that I actually, as I was about to get out of bed and prepare for it, my arm was chopped off at the wrist. And I actually had to look at it to feel if it was there. It was very deeply painful. And I just thought, okay, just lie back down, breathe into it, and just let the healing arise. And I ended up going in very deep. So from that point to probably present moment, my dive has been very deep with this vase and with the mandala and probably with all of Earth and myself and family. When the recordings came, I listened to them and I started to listen to it in my house and I had to turn it off. And I went straight to the beach. So from that point, whenever they came through, I walked my beach in Rockingham, Western Australia. And I just kept breathing and just flowing with the waters. And sometimes I actually even had to walk in the waters. And if I was on the sand, I was bare feet. And I just kept breathing and breathing and breathing. So from that point to now, I have had huge unfolding on full spectrum. And I've just navigated it and just gone where I've been shown and guided to go. And I was really excited about this one because I was so excited to listen to the stories. And when we went into the meditation today, so this is morning for myself, and as I closed my eyes and the words started to come through, I just saw the beautiful body of water, and the water was coming in and going out. And there was land on this side, and I saw this wall, this incredible, about 1 meter high, crystalline, rainbow. And I don't think wall is the right word, but it was very snake energy, but it just lifted up out of the earth between the land and the water space. And as it was lifting up, it was undulating as it was slowly rising, and it was just undulating, and it just kept moving, and it just kept moving and just kept moving. So I couldn't see the end of it. It was really, really quite astonishing. And as I was sitting there watching this wall lifting up and this beautiful rainbow light coming through, and I saw the mandala lift up, and I saw the vases come out of the earth, and they opened up, and there was all this sparkle. It was just so incredible, all this light. And then they sunk back down. And these words were really strong that came through. A reset occurred, ending exclusivity and ending exclusion. A grand reset. Then the gates opened, allowing all back in. And then that happened even prior to the places where the vase had been buried before they were invoked. And I actually couldn't be still. After hearing that, I couldn't be still. I stood up and I started to dance, and I just felt like I was a golden snake, and energy was coming down and energy was flowing up simultaneously. And I could feel the earth on my feet. I was bare feet on the earth, and I could feel it between my toes. And I felt the dust of her just covering my skin. And Kat, when you spoke about the native lodge that you attend prayers with, and that you were included, and you were not part of that native heritage, but you were included, that felt really profound. That really linked in to about that grand reset. Maggie, what you spoke about, that linked into it. Laura Lynn, what you spoke about, that all linked. And I just felt, just listening to everyone speak and just watching our beautiful West Australian vase get filled up with the Delphi Oracle, Delphi offerings from Therese. Oh my God, I felt like that. You were just pouring it in me. So this vase for me has just been out of this world, full spectrum, intense feeling that I've never experienced in my life. I think just intensity of everything, and just incredible. And I'm just so deeply honored, deeply, deeply, deeply honored that I was able to go through with it and that I didn't walk away. So I just want to offer devotion, discipline, focus, uniqueness, and bucket loads of joy with laughter. So much laughter as our hearts rewild, reopen, re-emerge. That is my offering. Aha. Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. Nicole, do you want to bring us to a close? And I'll dedicate the merit.
For me, I feel like the closing is the dedication of merit. So I don't have much else to offer. I'm just receiving. So yeah, let's dedicate.
Thank you, everybody, for your presence and hanging in here for this deep sharing tonight. May all of our prayers be realized. May it ripple out across space and time. And like it says in the sadhana of Mother Gaia, by this merit, may we swiftly realize our inseparability from Gaia. And may all beings without exception also realize their inseparability too. Like the wealth of a wish-granting jewel and the excellent vase, may the purpose of all of our wishes be unobstructedly accomplished. Mother Gaia, in all your countless forms, may we possess the good fortune of never separating from your loving kindness. Alalaho. See you next month, if not before.